Did you know you can wipe out any amount of inflation in EU5 just for a couple of bankruptcies? Well, what makes it broken is that there is no time limit. You can bankruptcy a day after the next and completely wipe out your inflation on game start. And this is incredibly broken for a country like Delhi, who has a huge disaster, starts with ginormous inflation, and if they can get this straight to zero, they're probably the strongest nation in the game. Here's a quick clip from my Saving Serbia game that will explain everything. So now's a really important time to talk about how bankruptcy works in EU5. Declaring bankruptcy doesn't delete your buildings like it does in EU4. It doesn't stop their construction either. And this is balanced because the penalties are horrific. But in the case of this Serbia game, we really don't have a choice. But this does mean that it is highly abusable. So we can take our max debt, which is 4,268 from our estates, and we can spend it in our economy. So for this Serbia game, it's going to be highly worth spamming jewelers as we're about to ban our gold export, but we can use it there. We also have a bit of an employment crisis in our capital, so we can spam out some market villages and upgrade as many good RGOs as possible. As you can see, we've got ourselves a bit set, but the more broken mechanic is about to come, so it's time for bankruptcy. As you can see, the penalties are horrific. But all that debt is gone, and our constructions remain. As you can see, our inflation is now down to 86%, which is still crazy, but much better than 115. But we can also chain bankruptcy, so ensure you improve relations with banks. Essentially, the issue is that these private banks don't have a modifier at the moment that stops them giving you additional loans when you're bankrupt. So we can take out more money from Bardi. We can spend it in our economy, and we can go bankrupt straight again, reducing our inflation. We're now down to 65%. And even the exact same bank that I just stole money off and went bankrupt straight away is very happy to loan to us straight again, which means that we can yet again go straight bankrupt again. Don't get me wrong, there is a big debuff for this. That whilst it doesn't stop your construction, it does reduce your building levels by 10% each time you do it. However, in this Serbia game, they really hadn't built up that much, so we don't really have anything to lose. As you can see, our inflation is now down to 36%, which is at a much more manageable level. I'm also importing a fuck ton of masonry, so that our buildings can get completed essentially. As you can see, it's taking us quite a while to construct our buildings and rebuild our economy, but it is making progress, so it's definitely worth stealing that money from your estates, taking that debt and utilising it. Now, we're waiting for our bankruptcy modifiers to expire, so here's a little bit of a time lapse. But we are still recovering. We're getting our stability back up, we're getting our legitimacy back up, and we're making sure that we can survive this 5-year bankruptcy period. So for your games, you have to think of what countries it's worth using this sort of strategy on. Is it a country that starts with a lot of debt, but is relatively safe, so isn't going to be punished for taking this decision? Is it a country that doesn't have too many buildings, isn't too built up, that they aren't going to suffer horrendously from having 10% of all your buildings just get deleted out of nowhere? Is it a country that's strong enough or has a standing army so that if you have rebellions or nobility problems or get invaded by a neighbour, you can fight them off without the use of your levies that will just crumble with that 90% morale debuff? Or are you playing someone with such good RGOs and domestic resource that it's really worth just spamming out and upgrading your country as soon as possible and suffering short-term consequences? Because don't get me wrong, whilst the penalties may not be as severe as in EU4, they are still very, very bad. 90% crown power is horrendous. 50 stability is horrendous. Your control of your locations isn't awful, but it's bad temporarily. Losing your great power score, but minus 90% of your research speed for 5 years, and minus 90% army and navy morale, so much they essentially become paper. It's not an easy choice. But there are going to be some countries where this strategy is just stupidly broken until Paradox fix it. The issue why this works at the moment is because there is no inflation debuff for just taking debt. It's just that high interest. And there is no limit that you can't go bankrupt more than once within 5 years, which is also having other problems because you can see AI nations that when they go bankrupt once, they'll go bankrupt 6 or 7 times. because they just can't handle their economy and only luck takes them out of it. So personally, I think Paradox needs to fix it, but until they do, let's abuse it. And I think the number one target for that will be Delhi. They start with so much money, but also so much inflation. So if you can take that inflation out the picture, they will become just purely overpowered. So it's a bit of a short video, but tomorrow we'll be cracking straight into Delhi, seeing what we can do to make this strategy overpowered. So keep tabs for that. Thank you.